A movie following Toshiro Hitsugaya? Count me in. The Diamond Dust Rebellion, despite having some plot points that were a bit inconsistent, it still made for an adventure that I found myself enjoying due to the amazing visuals and interesting storyline. It's a rarity amongst anime films where the central plot doesn't focus entirely around the protagonist, and due to this unique element, it allows Toshiro to lead the events of this film. 2 Hyorinmarus and Kenpachi charging at an ice dragon? Oh yeah, this is gonna be a banger. So if you haven't already, please drop a subscription and sit back and relax, because this is my blind review of Bleach. If you go into this movie looking for just an hour and a half of fun, then this film serves its purpose to a T. However, this movie is unfortunately my least favorite of Bleach's thus far. Having seen Memories of Nobody, Hellverse, copyright, and now Diamond Dust Rebellion, I just wasn't as invested into this plot, and it's in part due to a plot highly contradictory of canon material, but I can personally really easily turn a blind eye to that. The primary reason I didn't find this movie so compelling is because I felt it had a lot of concepts that could have been capitalized on that it didn't see through. Movies have a great opportunity to take advantage of a different focus in the canon story, which enables the potential for some amazing fan service. I feel Diamond Dust Rebellion had amazing potential with Toshiro as the main character of the movie, but Ichigo's presence makes for a dilapidated focus as we switch between the two of them. With Toshiro being so immensely popular amongst the fan base, as indicated by his super high poll rankings in literally every single popularity poll, it's no coincidence the film chose him of all captains to make a movie regarding, and I absolutely love this concept. Hell, I wish there were even more movies with captains taking the front stage, and I can't emphasize enough how much potential this film had with this very concept. Despite some missed marks, this movie was still a great experience for what it is, and is definitely one I'd watch again for some mindless fun. The film wastes no time starting off as we're immediately presented with Squad 10 overseeing the transportation of the Oin, which translates to the King's Seal. This seal is really obscure and for a fairly unexplained reason it's transported every decade as prompted by the royal family, and the royal family is a concept initially touched on within the first arc, but it really isn't a plot point that has much detail behind it. Rather than a royal family, the Soul King exists, but the Soul King, if anything, is a prisoner holding the worlds together, so it led me to question who in the hell ordered this transportation of the King's Seal. I speculate Squad 0, but even then, why move this Oin that has the power of literal hacks? I digress. Due to the time the movie came out, it's likely there was still high potential thought behind the development of a royal family, which would explain why it's presented here. With the Oin being transported very quickly, it's ambushed soon by Yin and Yang, who are seemingly Arrancar twins, who once more aren't very fleshed out, but nonetheless their design is great, and they have a lot of allegiance to the main antagonist. The central antagonist is presented almost immediately within Kusaka, who clearly had a lot of familiarity with Toshiro, and due to this reunion, it set into motion Toshiro going rogue on Soul Society, and most importantly, on his lieutenant. Toshiro's aloof nature within this film felt a little bit out of character. Throughout the series, Toshiro has been a huge component, and he's always seemed super level-headed and an individual who thinks things through. So him being compelled to deal with these emotions alone and threaten the standing of his squad, it felt atypical. Hell, I felt especially bad for Rangiku, who fought against her childhood love interest for the sake of her captain, only to be left in the dark in regards to his true motivations within this movie. Soon, Ichigo is brought into this story as he enters the barrier and is filled in on the aftermath of the attack, along with the prompt to inform Soul Society if he encounters Hitsugaya, which of course Ichigo doesn't. Ichigo encounters Hitsugaya almost immediately after, and with Hitsugaya holding in his spirit energy, I found it a really cool concept that after no longer suppressing it, snow briefly falls due to the very ice nature of Hitsugaya's Zanpakuto. Visually, I really enjoyed everything throughout this movie, and it once more felt like it could be on par animation-wise with today's current anime movies. With Hitsugaya collapsing, Ichigo brings him back to his house for good old Kurosaki medical treatment, and now Ichigo is fully within the story. Within Soul Society, Yamamoto decreed that Squad 10 be bound to their barracks, and he even threatens the disbandment of Squad 10 as a whole. Upon first being exposed to this notion, I found it to be really harsh, but then I realized that recently Aizen had betrayed the Gote, so I imagine Yamamoto was on edge from how much treason recently occurred amongst the captains. However, the other squads weren't disbanded, so I questioned why Squad 10 would be the one disbanded if Toshiro did hypothetically betray Soul Society. Hitsugaya, while asleep at Ichigo's house, remembers his days at the academy, and moments like this I thoroughly enjoy. Backstories are something I absolutely geek out on, and seeing Toshiro as the boy genius he was, it was a highlight of the film for me. This moment also gave us exposition to the childhood friendship of Toshiro and Kusaka, which served to develop at least slightly why Toshiro went through all these lengths to confront him on his own. Upon waking, Hitsugaya leaves Ichigo's home and is evidently confronted by our protagonist, who doesn't fit into the story quite seamlessly, making the focus swap between Toshiro and Ichigo pretty consistently. With this confrontation, Yin and Yang appear, and very oddly, Toshiro fights alongside Yin and Yang against Ichigo, which once more was out of character. With one of their clashes, Toshiro states in a very low voice, "Please," which indicated to Ichigo that he wanted to handle this on his own, and Ichigo is soon bested and collapses until the arrival of Rukia and Renji. We're soon brought to more backstory with Hitsugaya and Kusaka both standing before Central 46, which stated there can only be one rightful owner of a Zanpakuto, as both Toshiro and Kusaka shared Horinmaru. This concept directly contradicts the nature of Zanpakutos as we know it, but twin Zanpakutos nonetheless is an interesting concept on surface level. However, why in the world would Central 46 have two kids fight to the death to determine who can wield a certain Zanpakuto? In regards to that, we may never know. Central 46 doesn't seem to be the most reasonable of individuals, and Aizen sure did take care of those antiquated systems. Within Soul Society and the human world, our Shinigami try to piece together the motivations of Toshiro and what exactly is going on. And I thoroughly enjoyed seeing the dynamic of Shunzui and Nanao during this discussion. I giggled watching Shunzui try to pass off the duties to Nanao, only for Nanao to rope him back in. It's a dynamic I love seeing explored. As they researched the library for any history on Kusaka, I was mentally brought back to the light novel We Do Not Always Love You that had a large focus on Nanao and her love of the library and research. Little tidbits like this make me appreciate the attention to detail moments like this have in relation to the other characters. Upon finding out Kusaka did exist and that he died, Shunzui states that mistakes like this aren't made, and if someone is dead, it's confirmed. Immediately I questioned how in the world Kusaka is alive now, and as I soon learned, Oin hacks. A moment that bothered me a bit took place with Shunzui going on a walk as Kusaka confronts him. Kusaka somehow off-screens Shunzui, who is literally the future Gotei commander. There's no way in hell Shunzui was so surprised at the existence of a dead man that he forgot how to fight, and he wasn't just beaten, he was hospitalized. Soon after this takes place, Hisagi and Kira attempt to apprehend Toshiro, and anytime I see Kira and Hisagi fight, I thoroughly enjoy it. My god, look at the drip on our boy. Along with that, Yamamoto declares an execution order for Toshiro as he's deemed a traitor, and I swear I get chills every time it pans to all captains standing together. It gives me a flashback to the Soul Society arc and how incredible it was to see them all together for the first time. Due to both groups being injured simultaneously by Horinmaru, Byakuya expresses that it's impossible these things could have been both by Toshiro, Big Brain Byakuya, and with this he presents it to Mayuri, and it leads Mayuri down a rabbit hole regarding how two Horinmarus could exist. Within the human world, after all these events take place, Ichigo and Rukia hear the news and are soon attacked by Yin and Yang along with Kusaka. Through their clash, Kusaka Zanpakuto was able to show Ichigo the backstory behind Kusaka's desire for revenge against Soul Society. Soul Society isn't painted in a good light at all from this backstory, pitting two childhood best friends against each other to fight to the death to determine the rightful owner of a Zanpakuto. My god, they're just children, and all Kusaka ever wanted to do was be a Shinigami. It makes the backstory of these fated friends tragic, and once more, I wonder why in the hell this was necessary. The concept presented of Zanpakutos being able to share memories is a really interesting concept, but it doesn't last for long as Ichigo is soon frozen. While frozen, I fanboyed so hard seeing Ichigo once more enter his own inner world and see old man Zangetsu. My god, that's our boy. And he discusses the preservation of balance being the most sacred laws in Soul Society, and even presents the concept that Hitsugaya might have fallen into the depths of evil, only for Ichigo to come to the realization that what Toshiro is experiencing is similar to what he himself did. With the loss of Ichigo's mother, he pushed everyone away and he suppressed his emotions. He didn't want to burden anyone with his feelings, but him doing so not only hurt himself, but those he cares for. This was a really poignant moment within the movie, and it's one of my favorites as soon after Ichigo gains purpose once more and breaks out of the purple ice. As a side note, I enjoyed the differing colors of Horinmaru. The purple looked regal and diamond-esque, which could perhaps explain the movie title. Diamond Dust Rebellion sounds like there's some grand rebellion amongst a faction, but that's not the case at all. However, it is a damn cool name, but to be honest, it still doesn't make any sense to me. Kusaka and Toshiro eventually meet once more, and the power of the King's Seal is somewhat explained. With the ability to transport matter across space, they travel to Sokyo Hill for the final scenery of this film as Kusaka plans to enact his revenge. The additional ability of the King's Seal is that it can transcend time and space, which is how Kusaka was able to survive. His wounds were reversed back to a time before he was killed, as he was resurrected within Wako Mundo after being bathed in the light of the Oin. This prompted more questions internally, such as how was he able to come in contact with the King's Seal to begin with? Was it mere coincidence? Was the Oin somehow being transported when he was killed? But how in the world would he come into contact with it? Additionally, how do you know when the Oin was going to be transported this last time, as it's said that it's super highly secretive information? Alas, things soon come to a climax as the Gote arrive on Sokyo Hill to put a stop to Kusaka's revenge plan. While that happens in the human world, Ichigo and Rukia are overwhelmed by hollows, and Uryu arrives to rain down arrows upon them. I had a genuine chuckle with Ichigo annoyed that Uryu almost hit him, only for Uryu to state that he doesn't make those mistakes. Usually. Uryu, Chad, and Urahime play a large backseat in this film, but they still serve their role in moments like this. Their arrival allows Ichigo and Rukia to join upon the hill as Ichigo stops the conflict momentarily with a nice Getsugo Tensho, and soon Yamamoto arrives with the revelation that Kusaka is alive. This prompts the motivation of Kusaka to be presented as he aims to become the king of Soul Society. Him seeking revenge would make sense, but becoming the king is a whole different concept. This makes his motivation seem varied, which takes away a bit of his character development, and soon we're engulfed with battle. Toshiro now clashes swords against Kusaka, as Toshiro reveals he only went rogue to stop Kusaka all by himself, as Ichigo explains the emotions behind Toshiro's actions. It's poignant that Toshiro has hesitation in trying to stop Kusaka, because Toshiro's very existence scoffs in the face of Kusaka. Wielding the sword he wanted, living the life he wanted, Toshiro is the representation of all things Kusaka aspired to be, yet couldn't. Ichigo talks with Toshiro and explains he doesn't need to do this on his own, that he knows where he's coming from, but bottling up emotions only makes one weak. I know previously I stated Ichigo didn't need to be in the story, and I still stand by that. However, Ichigo expressing so much empathy and compassion towards Toshiro made Ichigo's supporting role feel very earned in this film. Kusaka eventually unleashes the Oin, which turns him into a literal ice dragon god. My favorite moment of this film undoubtedly came from Kenpachi seeing this ice dragon god and charging towards it with no hesitation. Kenpachi simply loves to scrap, and this moment was hysterical. With Kusaka reconstructing a vast amount of the Serite, even creating an ice tree, it made me realize how powerful this King's Seal is. It's for good reason it's not in the canon story, as influencing time and space and manipulating reality is a little bit too powerful, even for Bleach standards. There were some amazing fights as our heroes ascend the tree to defeat Kusaka, and we even get to see Ikkaku's Bankai. These visuals hold up incredibly well, and the fights were a blast to watch as long as we ignore a fairly uncompelling plot. A slight issue I had within the final fight was Ichigo landing the final blow on Kusaka. I feel Toshiro having so much focus in this movie, and the villain being his literal childhood best friend, that he should have been the one to defeat him, but nonetheless Toshiro played a good role in the battle, throwing Ichigo the alley-oop. With Kusaka being defeated, he does have a sweet moment with Toshiro, as it seems they both finally have closure, and with Toshiro stating that they'll always be friends, it gives finality to Kusaka's death. In the closing moments, Hitsugaya poignantly places Kusaka's broken Zanpakuto in front of his gravestone, and he bids farewell to his old friend. As the story closes, Rangiku tries to prompt Toshiro to join her in a hot spring, and the credits soon hit. I would have joined personally, Toshiro's loss. Despite a few of my issues within this film, I really did enjoy the ending and the closure brought to the story of Toshiro and Kusaka. There's elements within this film that contradict canon material, but they're easily overlooked if you come into this movie without any expectations. There was so much potential within a film focused on Toshiro, and despite him having a ton of screen time, the split focus did detract from how great this film could have been. A movie focused solely on a captain would have been fantastic, and often anime movies suffer from trying to fit too many characters into just an hour and a half of plot, which this film in fact does. I did however love this movie, and there were some great moments, Kenpachi charging an ice dragon god, and I love the symbolism of Toshiro removing his Haori upon his absence, and once more putting it back on for the final battle, as he once more is reminded of his duty as a captain of the Gote 13. Hell, despite the name not making sense, the name does sound super good, but it is a bit of a misnomer. But most importantly, there's a ton of focus in this movie on the aspect of suppressed emotions and how deadly that can be, that if you're dealing with something, to share it with others, and that if you suppress it, it only hurts yourself. And if you know me, I'm a sucker for real-world applicability from these stories. Despite any flaws within this movie, I really did love it, as I love Bleach, and seeing more of these characters explored is always a treat for me. This won't be the last of Bleach we cover, and my god, we have the movie Fade to Black next, which I have heard so many good things about. If you stuck around this long, please consider dropping a subscription, as these videos take a ton of time to create. Similarly to what Rukia said to Ichigo, this isn't goodbye, but see you later. As always, be greedier.